Hi, welcome. My name is Mattias Lögdberg, and today we're going to talk about consumer-friendly APIs. So we will continue the series where we've used Azure API Management and Auth0. So in the first session, we set up a trust and increased the security of our APIs with OAuth using the identifier Auth0. And the second edition, we used role-based access to give more granular access to APIs in our operations in our APIs. And in this session, we will focus on consumer friendly. So this one will make our consumers love us even more. Isn't that awesome? So in order to do this, we need to get our hands on where we are. So we will jump into the drawing I did the last time, and we will continue on that. So let's just step right through it. So on our drawing, we have to the bottom right, we have API management, and we have that API call orders, and we have a few operations. And the blue ones are marked blue because we've granted access to the consumer A, which is on the left side, and this part over here. And the red ones is restricted, so that's admin access. And let's see, we have Auth0 instance over here, which will then be where we are adding representations of our API management instance and our consumer, and also where we added the permissions. So in this one, in our API management representation in Auth0, we added permissions per operation, meaning that each of these operations have a specific permission inside of this API in Auth0. Therefore, I can, from a consumer representation in Auth0, provide access to specific operations via those permissions. Those permissions is added to the token, and we can therefore use a policy in our API management instance called validate job token and claim check to actually make sure that we have the correct restrictions on that operation. So that's make it granular, which means that we can, as the setup is now, grant access for create, update, and read my orders. So I've said that read my orders is an operation here, and it is, but that will be our focus today actually, and it's not set up correctly, because we will focus on consumer friendly today. So consumer friendly, what is that? That is for our consumer to make use of our APIs with less information. The less is more. So many APIs today, including my API actually, right now, requires that you have your customer ID or a customer identifier. I want to remove that in my APIs. That's what I want to remove, because I have representation of my consumer in Auth0, meaning that I know the identity of my consumer. And therefore, I also should know the customer ID of my consumer. And that's what we will implement today. So we will implement that part. So in Auth0, we will add over here something called customer ID. We will then copy this request, we get orders by customer ID, we'll copy that to our request my orders. And then we will have orders, if I'm not mistaken, customer, and we will have that customer ID. So when the request goes back, we are filtering the data that will be requested from our Cosmos DB with this data. So I will enforce the customer ID based on the identity that they sign into in Auth0. So if I have consumer A, I will actually add a value of 1, but if I could just as much add a consumer B, and then it could be 2. So that would be customer 2. And in the end, this will mimic what we get out of the data. So let's head out. Let's just head out into Auth0 and see how we can add an extra attribute on our application. There we go, and we got into our dashboard, Auth0, got our dashboard. Let's go into applications. Let's head into our consumer A. Our consumer A has been set up with APIs. Let's just go ahead and look at it. We have our access to our MLogdberg API. And we also have access to create order, update order, and read my orders. So setup is full. And now when we go to settings, we want to add extra value because this customer actually have customer ID 1 in our database. And let's just scroll down. There's not much to add, but on show advanced settings, we can actually do something. So we can add some custom application metadata. So this metadata could be anything. I will add customer ID and a value of 1 and press add. So you can see down here, here's my values and not remove. So customer ID 1, and I can save that. So this metadata is stored inside of auth0. I have a customer ID and I have it 1. For now, it's just stored in auth0. So in order to get it out of auth0, we need to have it in our token because it's a token, as we remember from our image, it is the token that we actually save it back, and it's a token that we should use because that's where we can actually have some information inside of our API management to actually extract those claims. So that's what we need. We need to get this out of our token. And let's get there. We go to this part and we go to something called, let's see, saved, awesome. Let's go to something called hooks. And hooks is a way of adding extra logic because this is not by default going out. So I have created something called get app metadata. And if I go into edit, you can see that this is some node script. And all I've done is that if there's a client metadata, we check if there's a customer ID set. If the customer ID is set, we can go ahead and add a new value into our access token. And this is the value we're adding. You have to have a namespace like this, otherwise it will be skipped and further down the list, so it will not be ignored. But I can put in the customer ID. So this will just pick the metadata customer ID and put it into this token part. So if I go back to this part and we get a token, and we're gonna go ahead and send. So get this token, and we're gonna copy this part and go into check out the token. Let's go ahead into, probably have used this one before, so let's go ahead and just do that. And let's go ahead and use this part. Add this part. So there we go. I'm not sure if you remember or if you have seen it before, but this is a new property. So this is a new claim that we have. We haven't used this one before. And this is really important because now we can actually get this one. If I go in and I change my value inside of applications and I go back to consumer A, and let's just for fun change it to 2, show on settings, and we can go ahead and delete that one and set customer ID and add it to 2 and then say save. There we go. And if we now request a new token, we will have a number of 2 in this part. So let's go ahead and check that out. And there we see, we got a 2. So that's good. Now we have something to use in our APIs. So now we have completed this and we actually have our customer ID in the token. So when we send this in, we actually have the token. So now we just need to actually utilize the token and send that information to our backend to give the correct data back. So let's just go in and let's go to MLogdberg API. So my API management instance, we have APIs, we got orders, we got V1, and we have something called get my orders. This one is not so very well written right now, so this is not going to work actually. Got permission set up and everything is good, but it will fail because it doesn't rewrite the URL when it sends back to my backend. So if I go to read my get my orders, you're going to see that this will give a 404 because this is not configured properly. So let's go ahead and fix that. So I want to actually mimic get orders by customer ID because this is the one I want. So let's go ahead and, let's go to settings, get orders by customer ID. This is the part I want. So this is what I want to use. I want to use this one, but I want to hard code it. So I don't want to give the possibility for my consumer to send in the customer ID. I want to pick the customer ID from my token to enforce that they only can get the orders that's actually in the token. That's what I want. And I have this URL which can be used to actually accomplish that. But first off, we need to add a few more things. So in my valid job token part, we need to add something called, let's go ahead and check it out because I'm going to show you into the policy. So this is the policy validate job token. And if we go down to the validate job, we can find that there's output token variable name. Because now we want to pull data out of the token rather than permissions. So this is usually used for permissions, but now we want to have a variable out so we can actually manipulate it for data. So let's just add this over here and let's say that's going to have token. So now we have a variable name token, which is a job token. So we can now create our brand new, let's go ahead and use set variable to create our URL. I should have used code. So there we go. There we go. We want to have let's put customer ID. So I want to bring in the customer ID. That's the one I'm going to end up in there. Inside of this, we can then go ahead and from context. So context dot variables, and we can then go ahead and pick out the token. Context variables token. That's good. And we can say that this should be a job token. So this is an object, actually. You can find it in the reference if you want to, and it has a few parts, which one of them is claims. Claims is a list, so it's more or less this list over here in an array. So if I want to have the value 2 out of this one, I need to use this as I go ahead. Let's just copy all of this. So there we go. And then we go ahead and I can use claims. Oh, sorry, let's scroll a little bit. Claims.get value or default. And let's go ahead and add that part. And let's just add space. We have blank, so there's not gonna be anything, or we can add like -1 or something. So we make sure that no customer data is going out if there's no customer ID there. So now I have the customer ID. Now I actually need to do the rewrite URL. So I need to make sure that my URL is like it should be for the backend. Rewrite. Come on. Okay, I'm gonna scroll. Rewrite URL. There we go. And let's just go ahead and add a because we need to add data. I don't want to pass in anything extra. That's no need. Let's go ahead and let's see. We're gonna add orders, customers, that part in the beginning. And there we go. And then we will add a show free context variables of customer ID. So let's go ahead and add that one. Let's make sure that that is a string so we don't end up in anything creepy. Let's remove that part. There we go. We got our claims get value default -1, and we have customer ID match parents. Let's go ahead and try this out. Let's see how it goes. Because now we will extract the customer ID into this variable, and then we will create a new URI. So we write the URI as mentioned. We want to use the orders, customers, and by ID, and that will be a 2 in this case. So it'll be orders / customers / 2. That will be the case. So let's press save. Output token variable name is a duplicate. Oh, did I have that before? Oh, look, I already had one. Let's just remove that part. Here we go, and save. Nice. So let's see how this goes. So now we should be able to get just the order for customer 2. Dun, 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 dun. Let's hope for it. Awesome. See, customer ID 2. So I got my orders. I have no idea what customer number I have. I know that I got my orders for customer ID 2. and I have no way of manipulating this because everything is set into my token. So my customer ID is set in here and enforced over here. This is the same part as this one, customer ID. And then also in our DB behind the scenes, we are then making sure that they will get the documents that are blue, but not the ones that are black or red. This really helps out giving a better consumer experience, because now the consumer can focus on just using our APIs and making the models rather, and just ignore the part of using customer IDs or identifier for that meaning. And this also improves security, because now I can, as a developer, API publisher, I can actually test all of this. I can have test cases that actually guarantee that my API won't let out any orders for a customer that is not set correctly. So there is no way you can do this wrong. And often in cases where you provide all of this into another app, so you have another application that actually managing this customer ID, like a web shop or something like that, you put all the trust in that application. Now I'm bringing that home to my API. So I'm bringing that home. I can actually restrict all of this on my own, which also makes it easier for that web app. So if they use AUTH0 as a identity provider, they can actually enforce the same kind of permissions and the same kind of metadata on their customers as well, which means that in the end, they have lighter logic. It's easier to do the same, which also means that it's much simpler to create like a web app or anything else that just will focus on getting status of my orders, because all you need to do is log in with your user and then go to that API and you are done. Nothing else. You don't have to have any other security or any other complex stuff that you need to put in, or understanding what the customer ID is, because everything is set up inside of AUTH0 and making it easy for the consumer. And that's all we want. We want to bring in and force the consumer to build much, much more and much faster. So that's all of today. I hope you find something of this inspire, and that you can build something new or challenge your setup in API management, because this is all about challenging and finding new and more productive ways. And also secure, as mentioned, you can test this. This is testable. You can actually make sure that in test environment you're enforcing everything, and that's awesome. And in the end, your consumers will be much happier. Cool. That's all for today. I hope you liked it. And if you have any feedback or comment or any ideas on what you want to see in this channel, please let me know. Leave a comment below, reach me out on Twitter, LinkedIn, what suits you. Awesome. So have a nice day and hope to see you soon. Bye.